Hello, thanks for joining us again today. Well, today it is Friday. It's July the 31st. So here we are at the very end of another work week and also the end of another month. And it's been an unusual July because of all that's been going on in our country. But here we are, and God has got us through these days and will. And hopefully you can look at some ways in which God can use you during these days to be an encouragement, to be a help, to go forward for the Lord, and that's just what we have. That's how we need to think, because that's what we need to do. Well, thank you for all who have been watching the videos. I know just this week alone we picked up some new folks that have told us that they're watching, and I appreciate that very, very much. Some good faithful friends that I've known, and we're not close to each other geographically, but we're in the ministry and we're serving, and here it is now, decades are passing, and all of a sudden you start realizing, wow, people are kind of looking up to us just because of the time alone, your age alone. And but it is wonderful to serve the Lord. There's no doubt about it. And God has made us for these times. Well, we started our series about Jonathan and David on Monday, and here we are at number 5, the last one we'll do in this series. We're going to be in 2 Samuel chapter 1. And we're going to look at a few verses here, and this will end this series. And hopefully you've gotten some things from it. And practically speaking, it just helps us understand the value of friendship and the importance of friendship, and indeed how much God places upon it also. So the setting here is that Saul and Jonathan have died in a battle against the Philistines. And really, sadly, Saul particularly died because of God said judgment's going to come upon Saul because of his lack of obedience to the Lord. It is sad because in the beginning, Saul, before he was chosen to be king, was the best in the land, the Bible tells us, and he never aspired to be a king. He doesn't even seem to even aspire to be any kind of a leader. He's from a small tribe of Benjamin, and even on his coronation day, he said, man, he was hiding. And they had to bring him out, and it's almost like, well, this is our king? I mean, he seems awful timid about it, but sadly, he started making some bad decisions, and Samuel the prophet had to come to him and say, I'm disappointed, and the Lord's disappointed in your decisions and what you've done, and the Lord's departing from you, and the kingdom is going to be given to someone else, and that kingdom was going to be given to David. As a matter of fact, David was anointed king even before Saul had died. And so as we fast forward in time here, of course, Saul and Jonathan die in the battle. And we're going to begin here. David gets news of that. And, of course, you can imagine how terribly upset he was about the news. And so let me begin here in verse number 17 of chapter 1 of 2 Samuel. And David lamented with this lamentation over Saul and over Jonathan his son. Also, he bade them teach the children of Judah the use of the bow. Behold, it is written in the book of Jazer. And here's what he's saying. It's almost in poetic form, like a psalm, basically. And it says here, the beauty of Israel is slain upon thy high places. How are the mighty fallen? Tell it not in Gath, publish it not in the streets of Ashkelon, lest the daughters of the Philistines rejoice, lest the daughters of the uncircumcised triumph. Ye mountains of Gilboa, let there be no dew, neither let there be rain upon you, nor fields of offerings. For there the shield of the mighty is vilely cast away, the shield of Saul, as though he had not been anointed with oil. From the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty, the bow of Jonathan turned not back, and the sword of Saul returned not empty. Now here's the key verse I wanted to get for our study today. Saul and Jonathan were lovely and pleasant in their lives, and in their death they were not divided. They were swifter than eagles. They were stronger than lions. And we're just going to stop there. Well, he does end the chapter by saying this, how are the mighty fallen, and the weapons of war perished. The point I want to make today is this. Of course, Jonathan and David became friends. It was very quickly manifested that Saul wanted to kill David. On 2 different occasions, David had the chance to take Saul's life, and he did not take Saul's life. And basically he said, how can I, put my hands upon God's anointed? He was picked by God, and I don't have no right to that. That's just not proper and right. He says, the time will come that God will deal with Saul as he needed to. And of course, that time came. Sadly, Jonathan died in that battle with his father, and he died with him. But here's David, and here's what I think is admirable about what he said here. He was saying, he says, look, Jonathan, the son to Saul, the king, they died, and they were not divided in their death. And what I want to get from that is this, David never said one time to Jonathan, you ought to kind of separate from your dad, or you shouldn't honor your dad, or you shouldn't even fight for your dad. You ought to kind of come with me and just kind of totally separate. But David didn't do that. David was glad that even though Jonathan and Saul both died, he's glad that they died together, fighting a battle together against the enemies of God, the Philistines. And I think that's admirable. I mean, here's a man who had been hunted down by Saul. Finally, after that second occasion, Saul says, you know what? I've been wrong. I'm not going to do this anymore. And David, you're more honorable than I am. And, I'm done hunting you down. It's okay. And really, David didn't really believe him. In fact, he kind of joined up with some, with the enemy basically for a while, trying to say, let me just I'll just be a follower and let me be a soldier in your army, because, Saul said what he did, but one day he's going to kill me. I'm convinced of that. But he gets news, of course, that Saul does indeed die. So the point here is that, David didn't say, okay, Jonathan, you've got to decide between me and your dad. He didn't do that. He basically said, look, I know you've got to show your father honor because that's your father. David knew that Saul was wrong in his thinking and in his decision to try to kill David, and Jonathan knew that. But Jonathan, he did what he could. He did what he could up to a point of obeying his father, which he did the right thing, and I think David acknowledged that, and David was saying that was good. But on the other side of it, Jonathan says, but I'm not going to deliver my friend to you, Dad. I'm not going to just say, okay, because you're dad and because, you're the king, then I'm going to go ahead and, deliver David into your hands just for that reason. He didn't do that. Jonathan and David had a covenant with each other. As a matter of fact, before Jonathan died, he said, look, basically when I'm gone, remember me and remember my lineage and remember that. And David honored that. But the point I really want to get across today is this: practically speaking, for you and I, when you get in a situation where you have, you're friends with someone and they may have allegiance to somewhere else and they have an allegiance to you. And I'm talking about a strong Christian friendship. And it seems like that maybe one part that they have allegiance to would not agree with you and they're not aligned with you. You know what? You don't have to tell your friends, you know what? It's either me or nothing, that type of thing. I think it's wise and I think it's godly to say, look, I realize that I can have a friend and they may be in a situation where they have to show some type of allegiance and even honor in places where those people would not honor or agree with me. And you don't have to say, you know what, you choose them or we're no longer friends. And David didn't do that. And I think it just shows the honor of David and his character, and it showed the honor and the character of Jonathan, how they both said, look, I know what we have to do here. I'm going to show you what God wants me to show you, and you show to whom you have to show allegiance to. They both showed allegiance to the Lord. And I think Dave was basically saying, I'm glad, even though I'm saddened that Saul and Jonathan both are dead, but I'm glad they were not divided. I'm glad that at least they fought and they died together. And David says, I would not ask Jonathan to separate from his dad because that is his dad and that's his king. And even David honored the position of Saul as king, as the Lord's anointed. So I think it's something to learn. I think we have to be wise. We have to say, you know what? I'm not just going to get emotional about a situation and just blow people out and say, you know what, I'm done with you. You can't do that. David did the honorable thing. He honored his friend, but he didn't ask his friend to dishonor a relationship that he didn't have to dishonor. He didn't just totally tell Dad, I'm done with you. No, he did what he could do. It was a difficult situation, no doubt about it, but he did what he had to do, and he did what was right to do. So I hope you got some things from these devotions this week. We'll begin something new on Monday. Hope to see you on Monday, of course. Hope you have a great Sunday, of course, a good Saturday too, but Sunday being in the Lord's house, and we pray that you have safety in your life. Pray that you have good health, and hope you have a great day. Thank you.